With that, I'm going to introduce my boss, the Special Agent in charge of the FBI Denver Field Office, Mark McCullough.
Vicki, is the microphone on? Can you hear us? Okay, good. Okay, well, good morning and welcome to the FBI Denver Field Office. Human trafficking, and especially sex trafficking of children, is a persistent and particularly destructive threat that causes unthinkable harm to the most vulnerable members of our society. And sadly, it's on the rise. At last count, the FBI has more than 1,600 pending human trafficking investigations. In fiscal year 22 alone, the FBI opened 668 investigations, with cases in each of the FBI's 56 field offices. With local, state, and federal law enforcement partners, as well as non-governmental agencies and nonprofits on the front lines, to locate victims and hold traffickers accountable for their abhorrent actions. Human trafficking criminal enterprises operate in plain sight and can go undetected for months, years, or even decades, while endangering dozens or even hundreds of victims before the enterprise is detected, disrupted, and ultimately dismantled. This isn't a kidnap off the street scenario that you might see in a movie. What we see is sex traffickers identifying vulnerable minors and exploiting them through different methods of psychological or physical control. Victims can be of any age, race, ethnicity, sex, gender, sexual orientation, nationality, immigration status, religion, socioeconomic class, or education level. Operation Cross Country is an annual, nationwide operation designed to disrupt criminal enterprises involved in trafficking, recover child victims from commercial sex trafficking, coordinate services for victims, and raise public awareness by showing what trafficking in America really looks like. Months before the operation, intelligence analysts used data from a variety of sources to identify possible victims and develop information about missing or at-risk children. Law enforcement teams then conduct targeted operations to follow up on those leads, looking to put victims in contact with advocates to prevent further harm, as well as apprehend offenders and identify traffickers for further investigation. The FBI uses a multidisciplinary approach and deploys highly trained victim specialists, child and adolescent forensic interviewers, and other social service personnel, in addition to special agents, to ensure a victim-centered, culturally responsive, and trauma-informed investigative response. As a result of our coordinated efforts, this year we recovered 8 juveniles and 19 adult victims of sex trafficking. Additionally, 14 children were located. 5 traffickers were arrested, and 8 other traffickers were identified for additional investigation. More than 40 agencies and organizations from across the state participated in the 2-day push in mid-July. Representatives of some of those partners are here today. In addition to our speakers, in the audience we have representatives from the Colorado State Patrol, the Denver Police Department, HSI, Fort Lupton Police Department, Commerce City Police Department, and Brighton Police Department. I thank you all on behalf of the FBI. We simply could not do this work without your continued support. While most news reports focus on the arrests, that's really just the beginning of the story. The FBI works with state and local partners to make resources available to meet the unique needs of trafficking victims. Once a victim is recovered, he or she meets with a victim specialist who makes an assessment and provides individualized support and services, which can include providing food and clothing, substance abuse treatment, offering transportation to receive medical or mental health services, and locating shelter or housing. The victim specialists also serve as conduits between the victims and the investigative team to provide case updates, and they fulfill an advocate role during the court proceedings to reduce the trauma survivors can experience when engaging in the judicial system. Our speakers here today are going to talk about the most important part of the story, the victims, and how we, as law enforcement and service providers, work together to support them. Through our shared commitment, we strive to provide hope to other victims so that they trust that we will never stop in our efforts to bring child sex traffickers to justice and help victims get to a safe place and receive the support they need. And with that, it's my privilege to introduce Ms. Sarah Troy, the Director of the Juvenile Assessment Center.
Thank you, Special Agent McCulloch, and the entire Operation Cross Country team for having us here today to talk about this special event. My name is Sarah Troy. I'm the Executive Director of the 18th Judicial District Juvenile Assessment Center here in Colorado. We service Arapahoe, Douglas, Lincoln, and Elbert counties. The Juvenile Assessment Center was again proud to be involved with the FBI, local law enforcement, the Department of Human Services, and other community partners in Operation Cross Country. Our assessment center, like other assessment centers in the Denver metro area, serve as a safe place for those who are recovered to be transported by law enforcement once they have been recovered in Operation Cross Country. We offer a safe space in order for the victims to decompress, maybe get something to eat, take a nap, get some sleep, and do things of that nature. While they're with us, our staff are completing comprehensive screening and assessment in order to identify any immediate or long-term service or resource needs. These services and needs can be intensive trauma-informed therapy, it could be substance abuse treatment, it could be educational opportunities, it could be access to basic needs. Post-screening and assessment with our staff, we are working diligently with the Department of Human Services and other community agencies in order to get these youth released back to a safe and supportive environment. That could be back home with their parent or guardian, with other family members, and unfortunately sometimes placement. Not only do our staff complete this process during Operation Cross Country, but I think it's important to let everybody know that this is something we are doing on a daily basis. Our agency works with approximately 2,000 youth a year through transports from law enforcement to our law enforcement program or through prevention referrals to our community assessment program. Each youth served by our agency completes the comprehensive screening and assessment process. Through this process, our staff are working to identify any possible indicators of human trafficking. These indicators could be indicative of a current risk of entering the trafficking world, or it could also indicate victims or survivors. Through this identification process and through our staff's professional judgment, indicators are noted on the Colorado High-Risk Victim Tool. This tool has been in existence and in use in our agency for approximately 10 years. In calendar year 2022, our staff submitted approximately 86 high-risk victim tools to the local multidisciplinary team. Some of these indicators that our staff are working to identify include, but are not limited to, running away, truancy, substance use, unsafe internet and social media practices, abuse and neglect, and minor crimes such as shoplifting, which we all know to be considered survival crimes for many of the victims and survivors of human trafficking. Our agency is very committed to the ongoing work of identifying and supporting victims and survivors. We always appreciate the opportunity to be a member of the multidisciplinary team for the 18th Judicial District. And in fact, we dedicate a supervisor within our agency to be a part of that multidisciplinary team and attend the monthly meetings. It's important to note that we're all in this together. Human trafficking affects everybody in this state and across this country and across this world. We really, really want to ensure that we are identifying as many youth as possible to make sure that we're being preventative and making sure that they have access to all the services and supports that they need. Again, we were proud to be a part of Operation Cross Country, as we have in many years in the past, and we're proud to be a partner of the multidisciplinary team for the 18th Judicial District. Thank you. It is now my honor to introduce Michelle Dossie with Arapahoe County Human Services.
Good morning. My name is Michelle Dossie, and I am the Child and Adult Protection Services Division Manager with Arapahoe County Department of Human Services. It is an honor to be here today amongst my colleagues whom have dedicated their careers to this important work. Arapahoe County is proud to be a supporting partner to each of the agencies represented here today. We have unhesitatingly committed resources from our department to this cause because we recognize our obligation to support these children and their families. It is only through a multidisciplinary team approach that we are able to locate as many children as we do each year. Each of our agencies holds an integral role in recovering our lost children. In April 2016, Governor Hickenlooper signed House Bill 16-1224 into law. This legislation connected Colorado's child welfare system to the anti-trafficking movement. Prior to this law, child welfare was only required to get involved if a family member was responsible for exploiting a child. With the passage of this bill, county human service departments are required to now open a case no matter the relationship between the trafficker and the child. This bill also created a child welfare screening tool to help identify victims so services can be provided. Colorado has emerged as a leader in demonstrating a comprehensive response to human trafficking and what child welfare looks like in that role and responsibility. With the help from the child welfare system, victims of sex and labor trafficking have better access to treatment and recovery services that are specifically geared towards the trauma that they have experienced. Arapahoe County Human Services has specialized staff who are highly trained to work these cases. We have worked in partnership with the FBI since the inception of their Innocence Lost Task Force. Arapahoe County participates in these efforts not just during Operation Cross Country, but also throughout the entire year. I am proud of my caseworkers and supervisors who serve these children and their families every day. Arapahoe County partners with this multidisciplinary team for months in advance to prepare for this operation. We assist analysts by sharing information that we have available. Our information can be crucial in identifying children, locating families, and ensuring children are reunited with their legal guardians and not to potentially dangerous situations. During these operations, we participate at the command center, supporting analysts in their recovery efforts. We take child protection referrals directly from agents to save them time from having to call each county hotline where a child needs to be referred to. We then refer those referrals to the appropriate county who has jurisdiction. We offer support to other counties to assist them in coordinating and responding in support of these victims. When children are located that belong to other states, we will assist in coordinating their safe transportation home. We respond on scene and are present for forensic interviews, and we ensure reunification with caregivers as appropriate. Sadly, through our assessments, some victims of trafficking are actually determined to have been sold by their caretakers, or they have been participating alongside their caretakers. Some children do not have appropriate homes, or even a home to return to at all. When that occurs, we work carefully to identify adults that they know and that they trust, and that can care for them and meet their needs, which is often extended family or friends. We have contracts with specialized providers to handle difficult trauma that these children have been exposed to. Once recovered, these children are often addicted to drugs, have physical injuries, have sexually transmitted infections, are pregnant, or are malnourished. Often they have mental health struggles. Many of these children are not attending school and have fallen behind academically. Children who have been abused or neglected are more vulnerable to traffickers who leverage manipulation to make their victims feel safe and valued. Notably, many of these children have contact with the child welfare system before, during, or after being trafficked. These vulnerable children often come from unstable homes, or they have strained or broken relationships with their parents. They lack community support, and they live in poverty. Many have physical or intellectual disabilities. Many also identify as LGBTQ+ and have experienced family rejection or harassment. Highlighting and understanding all of these connections is a crucial step to developing a comprehensive response. Some of the children located have also been previously reported as missing. Many of them are runaway or homeless. They have not yet been trafficked but are engaging in risky behaviors that make them exponentially more likely to be victims of trafficking. Child welfare assists with returning them home with preventative interventions to ensure that they do not continue down a dangerous path. Parenting children, especially in the adolescent years, can be very difficult. Parents need support, education, guidance, and resources. We encourage you to educate yourself about child trafficking. If you are worried for a child, please do not hesitate 24/7, 365 to contact our state child abuse and neglect hotline. That number is 1-844-CO4-KIDS. That's 1-844-264-5437. We all play a role in child trafficking and preventing child trafficking in Colorado. And thank you for your time today. It's my pleasure now to introduce Lieutenant Aaron Rebaturano from the Denver Police Department.
Good afternoon. I'm Lieutenant Aaron Rebaturano with the Strategic Investigations Division of the Denver Police Department. I have the privilege of working with my counterparts and also the privilege of supervising the Human Trafficking Unit, which includes 3 detectives that are currently assigned to investigating allegations of human trafficking full-time. The Denver Police Department created the Human Trafficking Division in 2019 with 2 full-time detectives. The creation of this unit did not only represent a recognition of the growing allegations of human trafficking, but it also represented a paradigm shift in thinking for the Denver Police Department and for our detectives, and looking at our victims of human trafficking from a victim-centered approach and offering them appropriate resources and attempting to connect them with families, loved and lost ones. Since 2012, we've had the privilege of working with the FBI in the Child Exploitation Human Trafficking Task Force that works to identify juvenile victims of human trafficking. We currently have 3 full-time detectives altogether working on these cases, and they work in unison with one another, including the Denver Division. The goal of the Denver Police Department is to remove victims of human trafficking from the control of their traffickers, while prosecuting the traffickers utilizing both state and federal law. I was asked to address what we are seeing in current trends and who's being targeted. Upon speaking with our phenomenal detectives, they identified a couple of things that stand out more than others. The current trend that our investigators are experiencing is the targeting of juveniles struggling with addiction, substance abuse, and mental health issues. Oftentimes, as previously stated, they come from homes that are not functional. Many of them are addicted to illicit narcotics, and this is an angle that the traffickers can use to subject them to exploitation. The traffickers utilize substance abuse to lure teens into locations where they're vulnerable. This begins the grooming process for the traffickers. Traffickers often offer these juveniles and these teens drugs in lieu of sex. The traffickers will then try to hold on to the victims and then offer them to other individuals, associates, for sexual acts. Who are the traffickers and how do they manipulate their victims? Many of our traffickers are low-level, mid-level drug dealers and gang members that have figured out that selling a human being for sex acts is more lucrative than selling narcotics. Although we have observed this current trend, we have also investigated residential brothels, illicit massage parlors, and street-level trafficking, all with the same outcome. The traffickers do not fit into an archetypical character. They come from all over the world. They are of every ethnicity, and they're of every background. There is no geographic or economic boundary that they hold to. The traffickers often find that providing drugs, food, and shelter is a successful means to manipulating their victims. Many of the traffickers utilize their victims' addictions, lack of resources, physical and emotional abuse to manipulate and maintain control of their victims. Victims of human trafficking will slowly be isolated from their families and friends, leaving their trafficker as the sole support system. As previously said, the Denver Police Department's goal is to reunite these victims of human trafficking with their families, loved ones, and also prosecute the people that are exploiting them. With that being said, I have the privilege of introducing Victim Specialist Ann Dar with the FBI Denver Division.
Good morning. My name is Ann Dar, and I am the FBI Victim Specialist for the Child Exploitation and Human Trafficking Task Force, who spearheaded the victim services for this operation. I want to highlight that the mission of our task force year-round is to first and foremost recover and our primary goal is to recover them and make sure that they are provided victim services. Second to that is to investigate and prosecute those who exploit these vulnerable victims, which is supported by the local, state, and federal partners you see here today. The foundation of my role is to ensure a victim-centered, trauma-informed response, which includes assisting on scene at the time of recovery in order to provide crisis intervention and needs assessment, which may include medical, basic needs such as food, water, hygiene, and to assess a plan for reunification or placement. Many questions include, how long have they been gone? Have they been reported missing? Are they in foster care? Have they gone without food or water or basic hygiene? Have they been in the system? When was the last time they were in school? We have many local law enforcement victim advocates that assisted us on scene, along with the DHS caseworkers and the NGO From Silence to Saved. They partner with me on scene to aid in determining next steps, safety planning, providing victim rights, and connection to services. I want to emphasize that this operation, with the help of the media, has provided awareness in our community that our kids are being trafficked right here in our backyards. These victims are discovered. They are not disclosed victims due to the trauma bonds that they have with their traffickers. This awareness has helped demonstrate the need to change legislation to build multidisciplinary teams, which creates a proactive versus reactive approach, showcase the gaps in services, thus creating partnerships in the community with service providers. This is what makes Operation Cross Country successful, making change and then ensuring as a community we can help these victims start the process of healing. You can be the change. If you see something, say something. We have a statewide hotline here in Colorado for human trafficking. That number is 1-866-455-5075, or please visit thisishumantrafficking.com. Thank you very much for coming today, and I think we're going to open that with questions.
And I didn't point it out, but media, if you haven't noticed, these are the agencies that participated in Operation Cross Country with us this year. You can see we had a broad coalition. So I'll open it up. Are there any questions for our speakers today? Kim?
These victims, what is the process when their first encounter? Do they automatically want to come and get help? Is there somebody who can talk about breaking that trauma bond?
Anne? Yep, so your question was that when we first encounter them. So when it comes to our victims, you know, the initial response may be that the trauma bond, meaning that they have this immense connection with their trafficker where they want to be protective of them. So part of my role is to kind of break down those walls just a little bit, try to build that rapport with them, and that's where we come in with those needs assessment questions and really break down their walls by saying, when was the last time you ate? When was the last time you slept? When was the last time you saw your family? Who's a supportive person in your life? And so asking some of those questions really tries to break down those trauma bonds, to really open them up to be able to talk to us, really seek out either medical attention and those basic needs, and then we're able to open the door to be able to talk about their experience, their story, what may have happened to them. And it really is a marathon. It isn't a sprint when it comes to these cases. They take a long time to investigate, which is why it takes a village to be able to work together with our community partners to surround them with those wraparound services.
Thanks.
Talk about trends. Last year's campaign had 11 child victims recovered compared to 8 this year, and then 19 adult victims, which is this year that's up from 11 from last year. Could you go a little bit more into the trends there, like, you know, why, like basically, you know, the children aspect of it has gone down? What are some of those factors, and why the adult aspect of it has gone up?
Does anyone want to address that or want me to answer? I will say that I mean, this is a point in time thing, so it's only over 2 weekends. So the numbers that you're looking at are for this operation with all of our partners over those 2 weekends. But that doesn't mean that the numbers overall that we see across the year have changed necessarily.
I just would echo that. This is a snapshot, just a period of history, and I think it speaks to the prevalence that we have in this community. So I wouldn't necessarily read anything into the numbers in terms of a trend one way or the other. I think the takeaway is that it is here. They are hiding in plain sight, and there's a misperception, I think, in the community that these are victims that were abducted off the street. In reality, as our speakers have explained, this is manipulation. These are criminal groups that are looking to make money, and this is such a devastating and heartbreaking type of crime. We wanted to highlight the victim aspect of this because often that is neglected. It really highlights the role of non-governmental agencies and nonprofits to help provide services to juveniles so they're not vulnerable to the type of tactics that were described today.
Yeah.
What should, excuse me, this is for anyone, but what should parents know about protecting their children from human trafficking? And how can they protect their children?
So I can say as a leader and as a parent myself, the stories that I hear are absolutely heartbreaking. Again, I think there's a misperception that it won't happen to my kid. There are folks that are not coming from the best homes and don't have the type of support, and I think that's where we have a layered approach with a trusted adult, with school, with the religious community, or some type of role model or support structure for folks to get help. The advances in technology have exponentially increased this problem. Use of technology and the internet now exposes kids to people that they usually wouldn't interact with. When we were growing up, it was more kind of location-based. But now folks from all over the world, all over the nation, can interact with your kids. So online safety is a big thing. I think that folks need to communicate to their kids, again, that there is some type of safe space for them to talk and to be able to care for them. And maybe that's not the family structure, but through the schools or through youth programs, that they have somebody they can talk to. But again, this problem is here. It surpasses all demographics. It is across the board, and so it is something that parents should have on their radar.
What concerns do you have about how human trafficking gets misrepresented about how it occurs? Thinking of conspiracy theories and such.
So it's a wide-ranging violation. Human trafficking is kind of the umbrella term, and we kind of categorize it on the labor side and on the commercial child sex trafficking side. I think the more we have these operations that we raise public awareness, the better. As somebody mentioned, this is something that we work year-round. We work in partnership with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and as we get leads, we work those in real time. We try to identify and make contact and ensure they are connected with services. But the real power of Operation Cross Country is to focus the mind and collaborate with the media to be able to have this public awareness, because again, I don't think it's on people's radar. It doesn't happen here. It happens in certain neighborhoods, or that's something you just see in the movies, and as we've demonstrated, that is not the case.
For maybe you or anyone in the panel, you were talking about severe problems that these victims have when you come in contact with them. Do we have enough support? Do we have enough funding? Because it sounds like these problems will take years to overcome with the victims.
That's a great question. And as I alluded to in my statement, when it comes to years ago, right at the inception of this operation, we had so many gaps in services when it comes to thinking about mental health, when it comes to substance abuse, ensuring that all of that is a trauma-informed response. And so coming together and having this kind of media awareness is crucial, because we're able to then provide more services by connecting to service providers in the community for that. That's how we were able to establish a partnership with the NGO From Silence to Saved, because they provide comprehensive case management services for our victims. And that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for us reaching out, working with the community and saying, saying, hey, here's our gaps. How do we make sure that we come together and walk alongside our victims to the adjudication of our case? But it's not just the end of the story when we have a successful prosecution. They have the rest of their life to have to process what their trauma was and what they went through. And so to have those service providers in touch with them and making sure that they have those comprehensive services is really crucial. So yes, having this awareness is what brings those service providers together to clear that gap that we have seen before.
So Anne mentioned From Silence to Saved, which is a non-government organization that provides services to victims of human trafficking. And its founder and director is here with us today, Janelle Goodrich. Thank you for coming today. We appreciate you being here. One last question. I'm trying to respect your time here. Yeah, Julia?
So I was curious, what's the protocol or practice if there's a victim who's maybe like open to talking or reading their situation, but they don't want to talk to somebody who's affiliated with law enforcement?
Maybe one of our non-law enforcement partners needs to answer that? Or Anne, did you want to?
Yeah. No, that's a great question, because I think that there's always a fear of law enforcement. And am I going to get in trouble? Is the person that I'm trauma bonded to going to get in trouble? And so they may not be ready to be able to talk about their experience or to talk about their story. And so that's where it's incumbent upon me to making sure that we're connecting them with service providers in the community. And so that could be DHS. It could be the Juvenile Assessment Center, who then connects them to community service providers. But the big piece is, like, for example, the NGO From Silence to Saved, she's not law enforcement. So having that case management, filling in the gaps with those needs assessments of making sure that they're whole and that they have those services will then lead to potentially that next step, which is a forensic interview and us starting our investigation and going from there.
Question about the prosecution framework. Maybe, I think I heard that there are no federal cases, so I'm just curious if you could speak to how the crime occurs, if you don't believe, if you think it's a local issue versus a federal widespread.
So I can say as the result of this operation, investigations are ongoing. Just because we do a 2-day push, that's not really the end of the investigative process. There's a variety of state and federal laws that would apply in terms of jurisdiction, and it's really a kind of a combination of the details of the investigation, the kind of widespread nature of it, but when it comes to prosecution decisions, that's really within the hands of district attorneys and the U.S. attorney.
Are you recommending cases against them?
As we continue the investigative process, if we've met the elements of a violation, then we will recommend either to the DA or the U.S. Attorney's Office. There's a variety of different laws, and there's a lot of factors that are applied to determine kind of those prosecutorial decisions. But yes, we do arrest and pursue charges on traffickers.
Are you providing any information about the suspects or the arrest or the details of those cases?
Yes, with prosecutors.
No, with the media.
Oh, generally speaking, no, we don't provide additional details. Investigations are ongoing. Those that were arrested, that'll be a matter of public record through the respective district attorney.
So, you'll notice we do have judicial districts on our list, so they were involved in Operation Cross Country as well. Some of those DAs actually had on-call district attorneys, so if we did find someone that might be a local prosecution, the folks in the field could refer to them. So I'm going to